Hi guys, welcome back to the On the Fly podcast with me, Jordan, and my lovely friend Mardy. We are back for episode 3 now. We've done 2 very fantastical episodes already. We only recorded episode 2 about 2 days ago, so it's very
Don't
fresh
give
in the
away the
mind still.
magic.
It was exactly a week ago. We've had a bit of a weird recording schedule recently, but I don't think with either of our ADHD we can ever expect to stick to a schedule, really. It's
Nope.
not within our strengths. But we are back again. We're just going to kind of, I think, keep rattling through the core spirits for our subjects on this. We had episode 1 on white rum. We had episode 2 on bourbon. Bourbon being, of course, a very American-based spirit. We decided to go a little bit more UK-based for this one, sort of, at least, and go to gin this week. So gin, while it doesn't necessarily originate in the UK, is almost a national drink of ours due to its rich history in the UK. But is also a decent seller in the US nowadays, and
hmm
one that's become a bit of a personal favourite for you, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it definitely after visiting London, I wasn't really a big gin drinker beforehand, but I do really enjoy it now. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. You were really indulging in the higher class gin drinking, I believe, right? With the
A hundred
cans of
percent.
spirit
Yeah, it
mixers
was
at Sainsbury's.
Sainsbury's. Yeah, the cocktailier of Sainsbury's. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean I'm a big rhubarb fan. It's a flavor that I've always loved, and here I am perusing the little shelf, and there's a gin, rhubarb, and ginger, and I almost didn't get it because it said gin, and I think I probably drank like 20 or 24
Yeah,
while I was
basically
for the two
every
weeks
time
I
I
was in
saw you,
London.
you were like, "Oh, I just had another one of those." And
It's
yeah,
incredible.
these sort of RTDs, as they're called, right, ready to drink. They've
Yep.
really risen in popularity in the UK and the US.
hmm
These little
They're very popular here.
pre-canned cocktails, so to speak, that are just they're cheap, they're easy to get, and they're usually quite nice.
hmm
My problem with a lot of those, for me personally, I am a big fan of gin, but I'm really not a big fan of tonic, which is probably the main
hmm
sort of mixer for them. And most of these
Me
pre-made
too.
ones are with tonic, so not really particularly to my taste. But rhubarb as a flavour, not something that's really seen in anything ever until it started becoming a really popular flavour for gin. Flavoured gins in general
hmm
becoming really popular here in the UK. Gin is something that has a really rich history in the UK, anyways. But over the last sort of 10, 15 years, maybe a little bit less even, flavoured gins have become a really, really big component of our gin sales. I saw in an article earlier they approximate something like 40% of our gin sales nationally.
Wow.
And rhubarb and ginger is one of the more popular flavors of that. Really, I don't really know where that came from
Delicious.
particularly, but um,
Well, I guess when you think of like what is gin, it's like botanicals, right? And you think
yeah,
of like the composition of rhubarb is really like kind of like stalky like celery. And it's
true.
gonna, not give out a whole lot of sugar or any other like I think it lends itself perfectly to gin.
I suppose. Yeah. I mean, maybe rhubarb isn't something I have a wealth of knowledge in, but it's a nice gin. It's a nice flavour gin. And yeah, it's. I think flavoured gins have really helped to change the public perception of gin. Really,
Yeah,
it,
definitely.
it used to be seen much more of like an older person's drink, or actually
hmm
to a lot of people seen as a very working class drink because of its origins here. It used to the
Interesting.
reason it rose in popularity here in sort of the like 1800s was because it was available to the lower class. Like it was much cheaper to make because we had a lot of heavier taxes on imported stuff. So like French brandy used to be drunk quite a lot here, and then we put loads of it was we're talking 1600s, 1700s. Like we put a lot of
Long time ago.
we put a lot of taxes on imported alcohols and really lowered the
Sure.
taxes and the prices on making alcohols in country. And gin was the one that we knew how to make. So it became something that the working class could drink consistently and could make consistently. So that perception of it being a working class drink never really went away until it boomed again, sort of in the 2000s, really. I can't say it's exactly the same in America, though I would say it's probably not too far off with the fact that I think that the first real popularization of it was probably with bathtub gin, right? Sort of 1920s prohibition.
Yeah, during Prohibition, bathtub gin was definitely had a resurgence with like a lot of other things that people were trying to make at home. Um, I think now with gin kind of is kind of not it's not as popular here, and I think definitely not with the working class. It's generally like a generational, like maybe some with like the change in cocktail culture, maybe more people are being open to gin, but it's not as popular here, I don't think.
That makes sense. I
Which
mean, again,
makes sense
it's
given the history.
yeah, it's a bit of a national drink here, so it makes sense. It's more popular here. It's
Mhm.
actually, I believe, the third highest selling spirit in the UK, behind only whiskey and vodka. And that's in the UK, so whiskey is also including Scotch, right? So it's going to have a big component of that.
Yeah.
I, I'm really quite intrigued by gin's history and the kind of ups and downs it's gone from. As much as we like to say it's our national spirit and that we kind of invented
Mhm.
it, really it came from Geneva. It came from us bringing that back from Holland when fighting the Spanish back in the 1600s. You know, it came from William III, or William Orange, I think he was called originally, right?
Orange.
Big
Yep.
sort of Dutch background, really kind of putting a lot of focus on that for us, and we just turned it into what we class as gin now, right? But then 1900s, it kind of died off a lot when it came to the prominence of much easier to make drinks and much easier to mix drinks.
Ah,
And we
okay.
also had some really weird laws around it. When I was doing some research for this episode, and I saw like in the late 1900s, it had kind of died off quite a bit because we had laws around the size of like the distillery tanks. They had to be at least, I think it was 1800 liters.
Oh
So you couldn't
wow.
really make small batch gins. The only places that were making gins consistently already had big, big batches of them, you know. But we also
Hmm.
had separate laws in place to prohibit breweries from also being distilleries. So like we were really making it hard to produce sort of like quite home crafty gins and stuff until it was sort of late 90s into early 2000s where there were a few brands, Sipsmith to name one that I know of, that really started to challenge that, and managed to get those laws changed so that we could have those smaller batches. And then 2000s also kind of coincided with a big resurgence in cocktails in the UK. So those kind of side by side really boomed gin back up to the popularity it is now, and then flavored gins as well coming in and really sort of changing up the market. Like it's had a really kind of up and down history in the UK, but also a lot of weird differences in when it's popular and why. Which I think
Very
that's
interesting.
kind of what a big part of why I wanted to talk about it today, because it does have such a rich history. And
Mhm.
while bourbon was very much an American historical spirit, and over here it was just kind of, oh, we have it and drink it sometimes. Gin's kind of
Mhm.
like the opposite, right? Like
Yeah. No, it
you
makes
have
sense.
history with it, but it's got a
Yeah.
real rich tapestry behind it here
Mhm.
that um, clearly piques my special interest focused brain. Um,
I
but
get it.
uh, but I think it's also worth noting not only that when looking through classic cocktails, when going through your
Mhm.
real well-known big name cocktails where you know you go, oh, what are some classics that you know, and people start reeling things off. Gin has a really high number of well-known cocktails, which actually kind of surprised me when looking into some of them. You know, while trying to avoid perhaps the ones that we've brought recipes for today. The
Sure.
martini is an obvious one, sure, but
Of course.
uh, you know, the last word, French 75, even the Negroni, as much as it's more of a Campari cocktail than it is a gin cocktail, it is still proprietarily a gin
Oh yeah.
cocktail, right?
Yep. And I make a lot of like um, bees knees, French 75. Of course, like even like gin and tonic and cucumber. That's also a huge thing that I've resurged in the I guess the past couple of years. Um, but yeah, there is a lot of things that are very recognizable that are kind of day to day that you don't really think about. Oh, that's gin. Like,
I think gin's position as quite a classy spirit almost has lent itself to these classic recipes when someone wants a real kind of clean smooth cocktail of some kind, gin is quite often a go-to for that.
I agree with that. I think it's also like I think a lot of people get intimidated by gin because when you think about like making a cocktail with vodka or even rum to some degree, like it's kind of a blank canvas. You have a
Yeah,
lot that you can do to it, and with gin you really have to be mindful of how you're pairing things. Otherwise, like it just tastes like a misplaced Christmas tree in a drink.
yeah, for
Like
sure.
you kind of have to be mindful of which botanicals are in this gin and like how it's going to play with your mixers and your other
Yeah,
liquors.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think
And
that
and
for a lot of bartenders that's something they don't want to touch.
oh yeah, you really kind of have to know how to balance it, otherwise it's not going to quite taste right. And
Hmm.
if you don't pay attention to that, you are better off just using a vodka, right? It's going to give a similar kind
Exactly.
of alcohol profile, but without bringing that flavor in. There are a lot of different botanicals used within gins, but even the most baseline gin is going to have a very strong juniper flavor. So that's something you
Hmm.
automatically have to find pairings for and have to find balance for.
Exactly.
Because to be properly categorized as a gin and not a gin liqueur or a bathtub gin or etc., the gin has to be 37.5%. It has to be the botanicals have to be added during the distillation process, and
Hmm.
it has to be juniper forward. Juniper has to be the most prominent flavor in that gin. Otherwise, it becomes a flavored gin. It becomes a gin liqueur. There's a lot of like weirdly specific laws about it that
Interesting.
aren't really paid too much attention by the overall population, and nor do I think they should be. But it does mean that juniper's always going to be a pretty prominent flavor unless you've got specifically a flavored gin. So
Sure.
no matter what, like your most blank slate gin is going to be juniper flavored. So balancing that into a drink, you do have to think a little bit more carefully than you would just, yeah, I can put 50 ml of Grey Goose in this and it'll be fine, you know?
Exactly.
So but it has been done so well so many times because despite that, it does pair well with a lot of flavors. And
Mm,
knowing the right ratios is important, right? But it
very
has
important.
been popular and been effective in a lot of these really good cocktails to the point that really, like, when it came to picking out classic recipes for us to bring, we had a plethora of options.
I agree with that.
Um, and like along with that, obviously they do all have that juniper flavor, but the variety in botanicals means that the differences between the brands of gin is really hugely important.
Hmm.
When people have favoritism between different brands of vodka or even like white rums and stuff like that, it's usually more subtle differences that they like. And it's usually, I like this one, but you could probably sub it out for this one. I find it much harder to do that
Gin
with gins
drinkers aren't
because
like that. Yeah.
no, but there is more of a difference with them, right? Like
Hmm.
if you sub out a Hendrix for a Bombay Sapphire or for a Tanqueray, it's going to bring a pretty different flavor. So you do have
Definitely.
to be
Yeah.
careful around that. Not massively different. It's still a gin, right? It's still going to taste botanical and that kind of almost piney floral note, but it's going to make a noticeable difference a lot of the time. So you do have to be kind of careful around that. And I mentioned a few of the brand names there. They are some of the popular ones here, I suppose. I think the best seller overall here is Gordon's. A good chunk of that comes from home sales as opposed to bar sales. It's not.
Mm.
It's. I don't even think it's in the top 10 in the last lot of research I saw for bar sales, but it sells a lot at home. Bombay Sapphire, Tanqueray, Beefeater, all huge names in the game here. I don't know how many of those carry over to the US
Oh, I
particularly,
mean,
but
quite a few. Those are all. I mean, I haven't seen Gordon's anywhere, but I guess that's I don't know if there's a whole lot of home drinking of gin that's occurring
Gordon's
here.
is the working class gin here. Really, it's
Exactly.
it's the base. It's generally quite cheap. It's easy to get. It's available in lots of places. Like it's yeah.
I'm going to guess that so ours here in the U.S. Is Tanqueray is by far the top selling, and then second place is Seagram's gin, which you're not familiar with, are you?
No, I'm not. No, maybe that's more
It's a
particular to me. It is in the top 10 for sales here, but
oh,
it's
okay.
I was surprised to see it there. I've not seen the bottle. I've not heard of it before. So
It's very it's popular in pop culture. Or it was maybe like 20 years ago or so. I guess people are still drinking it, but then it kind of gets muddy after there because then it's like Bombay Sapphire, Hendrix, and Aviator are all kind of in on that. Aviator being an American gin,
Aviation,
are all
right?
kind of in.
The Ryan Reynolds one.
Yeah, Aviator. Yep.
Yeah.
Is it Aviation? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
goodness. Yes, Aviation. Thank you.
I like Ryan Reynolds a lot. I like that gin a lot, actually. So,
I don't.
it's
Personally, I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't had it.
No.
But it sells
So
really well. I've seen
I
it
initially tried it because it's Ryan Reynolds. I like him quite a
You
lot
wanted
as
to
an
become
actor.
Deadpool.
I like Deadpool, you know. But and I initially tried it because of that. And I've tried a lot of celebrity endorsed brands for like alcohol and food and stuff. Most of the time, it's mid, right? It's not very good. It's sold because of the name, and it's, you know, maybe not terrible, but I wouldn't go to it. Aviation is an exception to that. Aviation is a really good gin, and I've had some people argue with me about this. I think it's a really good gin. It's very nice. It's very smooth. Like, honestly,
Because
it's
it's
one. It's maybe my go-to gin. Like, if you said to me, "Oh, can I? What, you know, I'm going to buy you a bottle of gin. What do you want?" I'm probably choosing Aviation. Like, yeah,
interesting.
Maybe not so much for cocktails or for versatility, or, you know, if I'm making drinks with it, it's not necessarily my go-to. But for me to just drink with a mixer, I would go to Aviation. Yeah. Do you have a favorite gin? I mean, obviously, you mainly picked it up over here in cans, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that for a lot of cocktails, I usually, kind of go to either, Tanqueray or Bombay Sapphire. I've kind of found an appreciation for Tanqueray Rangpur, which has that Rangpur lime in it as well. I think it's really nice. But yeah, those are kind of the ones that I like Hendrix every once in a while, but the Hendrix bottle is just one of those ones
it's
that
an irritation.
bothers me as a bartender. So
it's an irritation.
if it's not leaking, it feels empty. So
it's very pretty, but it's very annoying. And that spout, the spout for it does not need to be that thin. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the question I usually ask in regards to this is, you know, if you're setting up a back bar, what is your go-to gin? I guess it would be Tanqueray. It would be Tanqueray for me too. Aviation is more of a personal choice. I like it a lot. If I'm choosing something to put on my bar, to put into drinks, to put into cocktails, Tanqueray, it has the popularity it has for a reason. It's very good. It's not crazy expensive for what it is, and it does its job.
That's true.
And there's also it's also got its more premium one of Tanqueray number 10 if you want something a bit fancier. That is also a phenomenal gin. Like, it does its job really, really well. I am really not a big fan of Beefeater. I know it's very popular in both. I don't like it. Gin can be quite abrasive as a drink, and I think that Beefeater for me is a little too rough, almost.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And there are some really rough gins that do it well by bringing some really good, unique flavors, and I don't personally feel like Beefeater does. But it's a big name, and it goes okay into some cocktails, and it's inexpensive, so I understand why it's popular, but I personally, not a fan.
In my part of the world, Beefeater is a lot of older gentlemen who want to drink that. So I don't know if it's because it's that, kind of rough taste or whatever.
Probably.
But that's generally the subset of the demographic that is, for me, is drinking Beefeater. Otherwise, it's hands down Tanqueray or Bombay Sapphire generally, or Hendrix.
Beefeater has really started to take its place as a go-to, like, speed rail gin here. Like, that's a lot of places' house gin now.
I've used it like that before too.
I've worked in quite a few places recently where Beefeater is the go-to house gin, as opposed to, it used to be Gordon's, and then it started to get a really bad light to it in its quality, which I agree with. It's not very good, but I don't think Beefeater is either, so I don't think it makes much difference. It's kind of started to become a popular well drink, essentially, which, like, I guess it's fine for, but when you start putting it into cocktails, a lot of the time it gives it this added sort of tinge of that real harsh flavour that I just don't think benefits anything it's in. It probably goes quite well with tonic, because that's already a pretty, pretty harsh drink.
When I've done gin infusions, I like to use Beefeater because of that kind of brash quality, because then, whatever flavor you you are introducing to it, it kind of rounds it off a little bit if you're fat washing or
I
something
guess
like
that makes
that.
sense.
So I don't necessarily mind. That's the application that I've used it in the most, I think.
I guess that makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
but yeah, on its own, it's nothing that it wouldn't be my choice.
There's a gin that's local to me around here called Manchester Gin. Shout
Hmm.
out to Spirit of Manchester. They make some phenomenal spirits. I think I may have mentioned them on one of the previous episodes. I'm not sure, but they make a London Dry gin here with a big focus on it being drinkable on its own, so it's very smooth.
Mm.
They use dandelion and burdock in their botanicals,
Ooh, okay.
because they're obviously like very quite local botanicals, right? Well, I say right, like they're maybe not as well known globally, but it's a very local thing that like dandelion and burdock as a flavored soda here is or at least used to be quite
Interesting.
popular.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a really sort of local to Manchester thing. So it's something they utilize in their gin, but it's really really smooth. I worked with them for a little while when I was at Moxie, and I was putting together a menu there, and I had their gin and a couple of things there, and they have a flavoured one as well, like a raspberry one. They've got a hacienda one, which is like quite citrusy. This isn't sponsored or anything. I'm not like being paid to
But
say
it
any
could
of
be.
this, but yeah, if you want to, that's fine. But I just thought it was worth a mention when talking about the gins I like and stuff, because I kind of almost found it because I had to and kept it because I wanted to. Um,
And that's
I
the cool
it,
thing about gin is that you can make those local flavors, because we have a few here in North Carolina that are made with like just local floral things, and
yeah,
like you can kind of really craft and get the taste of home
oh yeah, for
in
sure.
in a spirit like that.
But it's a really well made gin, and I used it in a lot of cocktails because of its smoothness. Right, it brought the
Mm.
botanicals, but in a really kind of light way that allowed it to kind of uh, be used relatively neutrally, but still bring enough of that botanical flavor through. It was nowhere near as
Sure.
harsh as the beefeater. It was, it just yeah, it was. I was big fan of it, and the raspberry one was really popular as well because it was a lot
It
of
sounds good.
flavored gins or really kind of flavored spirits in general. You find a lot of the time they're a little bit oversweet, right? Like it
Hmm.
tastes very artificial. Like
Artificial.
there's
Hmm.
a very popular brand here called Whitley Neal that make flavored gins. They do like rhubarb and ginger and raspberry and all sorts. They're good. They're nice. They often taste artificial,
Hmm.
whereas the Manchester raspberry really didn't. And I think that I tend to lean more towards those ones that taste a little bit more natural as opposed to artificial. Similar to how I've said before, I feel about a lot of apple flavored things. Like those artificial flavors are
Hmm.
fine, they're nice, but I don't think if I'm going to have 4 or 5 of them, or if I'm going to put them in a cocktail, I don't really want that to be the predominant. And things like Manchester gin or like Penrose is quite good for it as well. I don't know if that's a brand that you have over there. There's some
I
really good flavored
don't
ones.
think so.
I find those kind of really appealing, and it's so easy to add artificial flavor, but it's so nice to add proper natural flavor, and keep it
Yeah,
smooth
I was
as
just
well.
gonna say that I think that we both have had our palates kind of ruined by
Oh
having
yeah,
like the fresh actual flavors put into spirits, and then you kind of go back to like an artificial one, and it's just that's the flavor, you know?
the most popular, like if you said to most British people, "Oh, what flavored gins have you had?" They'd say, "Oh, like pink gin," because pink gin is specifically it's usually Gordon's, but Beefeater do one as well. It usually just says pink, and it's strawberry flavor
Okay.
generally, but
Oh,
it's very artificial and it's not good. um, it's like I've drunk a lot of pink gin, and I still do sometimes now because it's cheap. It's cheap and it's fruity. That's it, right? I you know where I drink that kind of drink. When I go to Manchester's Gay Village and I want to go for a dance, and my focus isn't on high quality drinks, it's on good music and good vibes. I get a double
sure.
pink gin and lemonade because it gets me drunk, right? That's it.
Oh yeah. I mean, some things just do the job.
Because it's cheap.
I bet
It's
strawberry
affordable,
would be
but
really good in gin, but like
oh, it
actual
would
strawberries.
if it was actual strawberry. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
problem. But it's I mean it look to each their own, right? I understand that people
Of
like it and
course. Of
it
course.
does its job. Um,
Of course.
but it's not a high quality one, you know. Whereas there are high quality ones available that actually price wise aren't too much higher. So if you're going,
Hmm.
set up for a bar or whatever, or you're going into actually nice drinks, I'd say it's pretty much always worth going for that kind of middle range with
Of course.
with gin, right? Whereas I guess if you're at a dive bar or at a club or drinking at home, I understand going for that that lower range.
Mm-hmm.
I would put Beefeater in that lower range personally, but
I agree with
a
that
lot
as well.
of places seem to put it in the middle range.
Don't. Mm-hmm.
I'm learning actually through this discussion. I'm a lot fussier with gin than I am most of the spirits, because when we were talking about
That's what I'm
rum
gathering too.
and whiskey, I was like, oh, this one's maybe not quite as good as this, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Whereas gin, I'm like, this one sucks. I don't like this one. This one's hard. Like,
yeah.
I think the harshness of a bad or abrasive gin, I feel is maybe a little heavier than it is on, say, a whiskey or a rum, and also often, you know, quote unquote bad or low quality whiskies or rums are usually worse because they're sweetened.
Yes.
And gin's kind of often the opposite, where there's a really harsh botanical flavor to it. So maybe it's down to my palate, right? But
no, I think that sounds like a reasonable conclusion to draw.
But yeah, it's okay. Well, we did do our best when we were talking about the other classics to avoid specifically ours, because they are both pretty well known classics, because
Definitely.
there are a lot of them. So why don't we start with you? What classic gin cocktail have you brought for us today?
Sure. I picked the Clover Club, mostly because it's a little bit on the sweeter side. I love raspberry and, of course, egg white, as we've kind of determined previously. Clover Club is a pre-prohibition gin drink, which started it was the house drink for the Clover Club. It's been around, the cocktail was first written down in 1908. So it's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, an old one.
But it didn't have a lot of favor with men because it's pink. And
right,
so like
it
Esquire
does
magazine,
kind of have it does kind of have the perception of being a girly drink, right?
Sure, yeah. Esquire magazine in the 40s printed it and said that it's a good drink, but it's definitely something for the ladies. And it's pink, so it's not taken seriously. So I think that's really interesting, just to kind of, judge based on a drink. I know a lot of people, at least here, men will, oh, I can't have that drink, it's in a coupe, or I can't have that drink, it's in a cocktail glass. Put it in a rocks glass for me, because it's
that
more
happens
man
here too.
glass.
Yeah, for sure. Which, first of all, stupid.
I feel
it's a stupid notion, but
yes.
Whenever someone comes to the bar to me and
Glassware.
says, someone comes up to me and they're like, oh, I need a drink that isn't girly, or I need a drink that's for girls, or whatever, I will almost always intentionally make something really neutral. And when they're like, oh, that isn't really girly enough, I'm like, it can be what you want.
I'm a girl, I like it. Yeah, because I've done that. They're like, give me something girly, what do you drink? Jägermeister.
Yeah.
My girlfriend will love it.
I get the same on the other side. Obviously, me being non-binary doesn't come across too well on the bar. So when a guy comes up and goes, sure. "Oh, you're a guy. What do you drink?" I'm like, "I like pink hooch. I like tequila rose." So. But yeah, you're right. It has had this perception as a girly drink, but it's a really good quality. It's gin drink,
and it's delicious. Like that's the whole thing. I'm like, I don't care what it looks like. Does it taste good? That's my whole thing.
Fellas,
like,
is it girly to enjoy your drinks?
For real, it's. But so I guess my general go-to recipe for Clover Club is 60 mLs of gin. I would probably pick Bombay, Sapphire, or Tanqueray for this. I think that would be the flavor profile that I would want to go with. About 25 mils of lemon juice, 25 mils of simple syrup. And you're gonna put this all in the cocktail shaker with then about 5 fresh raspberries, because we're gonna be making our own. You could make a raspberry syrup, right? Mm-hmm. But I think making it this way, where you adding the fresh raspberries to it, just ends up having a better result. It tastes more fresh. And then you throw your egg white in there, dry shake, add your ice, shake again, strain into a coupe or a martini. But of course, if it's me, it's always going to go into a coupe. Mm-hmm. Express a lemon peel over the top, and then throw it, because you just want just that little bit of an essence, and then garnish it with a raspberry or two on a pick.
Nice.
And it's this beautiful pink color, and it is smooth because of the egg white and is refreshing and a little bit tart because of the raspberries. Everything just balances so well. And it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, I think it does a really good job of being a sweet cocktail without being an oversweet cocktail, right?
Yes.
Because of the tartness from it, because you generally want to use something fresh. That is something that will change if you use like a Monin raspberry syrup or whatever. It'll still be a
Of
nice
course,
cocktail, but
yeah.
it won't be the same. You make either a fresh
No.
raspberry syrup or use fresh raspberries, you get more of that tartness, and it's not oversweet. And I think it does a really good job of being that sort of, I don't know, girlier, fun drink without just being sugar in a cup. I had one at a bar called Schofield's here in Manchester, which is the as of latest number 3 cocktail bar in the UK. It was number 1 last year as well. So it's like quite a prestigious, well-known cocktail bar here. And I had a Clover Club there, and it was phenomenal. It was a go-to from their menu. I really liked it a lot. And yeah, it's bursting with flavour. And it's not too oversweet, but it also does a really good job of bringing that gin through, which I think is important.
Yeah,
I think
simple. It's a one spirit drink. Yeah.
I think they use Bombay, but I could be wrong. I think Bombay works really well for that because it's freshness.
Yep.
It goes really well with that kind of tarty flavour. It's a and also the name of one of the most famous bars in the world, right? Like Clover Club is, I would say, one of the most well-known global bars. I mean, I've never been to America, and I know of it, so you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's it's well known, but I don't know if the organization itself disbanded around World War I. So a lot of like the essence of what the Clover Club was, with all of the rich and famous that would go there, a lot of that died off after the First War.
Yeah. There is still a Clover Club in New York, though, no?
Yeah, it is. It's not the original one, but
okay.
Or if it is, it's not quite the same. It's an offshoot.
Yeah, it's in Brooklyn, by the looks of it. Award-winning neighborhood bar. I didn't know it was different to sort of the classic Clover Club. I didn't know they were different. I guess my American bar
and maybe
it. But...
Yeah, because this was they started meeting at a hotel in Philadelphia, and then the bar in New York, I believe, is an offshoot of that, because it started in Philadelphia.
I know it's on the current Clover Club is I think it's number 43. I could be wrong with that. It's on the World's 50.
Yeah. It's definitely well known bar, but there's
notoriety. But
yeah.
But interesting that it's gone through so many changes throughout the years. But yeah, a great by the looks of it, a great bar, but definitely a great cocktail. That I think isn't served in enough places personally, when it's really not that difficult of a cocktail to make with the ingredients. I think
it's not, as long as you have raspberries. Pretty easy.
Yeah.
What did you?
I've also brought quite a refreshing, fruity, classic gin cocktail. This one of much more British culture. I've brought the Bramble. The Bramble is a favourite of mine that has had a few different recipes throughout the years and a few different ways to make it, I guess, if you will. The original Bramble was created by Dick Bradsell in 1984. It was at Fred's Club in Soho. A proper classic London cocktail. Pretty simple in its make. It's essentially a sour with a drizzle, you know. I think the Creme De Mure, something we talked about in episode 1, a very, very lovely liqueur that just really brings brings that kind of tarty flavour without being oversweet, right?
Well, it's a blackberry, so I mean, it's kind of in the same host of raspberries. And really, if you think of it, both of our drinks are essentially gin sours. With an added fruit, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like my Bramble recipe would be 50ml gin, 25ml lemon, 15ml of a rich syrup, which is pretty much exactly the same as I would use for a gin sour, but then shaken over crushed ice, and served with it sort of more of like a float with the Creme De Mure down the crushed ice. So it basically is just a variation on a gin sour, but I think it works, you know.
Definitely.
And Creme De Mure goes so well with that kind of gin flavour, the tartiness of the blackberry just pairs so nicely with the botanicals. I think Bombay's freshness works really well with this, but I do think that Tanqueray's boldness kind of sits really nicely in this as something that has a pretty big gin component in it. So that's what I'd personally use. Garnish-wise, I'd go some mixture of, preferably all if you can, a blackberry, a lemon slice, and maybe a bit of icing sugar over the top. That's quite a popular garnish for this one.
Nice.
Just to feel like it sits on the nose quite well, you know. But yeah, it's a simple composition, especially compared to some of the others I brought in the first couple of episodes. But I think that keeping it simple is usually the best with gin. If you overcomplicate it, those botanicals are going to be a hindrance rather than the beauty of it, right? And I think that allowing those to shine while adding some very lovely flavors is what most of the best gin cocktails do. And I think the Bramble is no exception to that. I think the blackberry and the botanicals are really good. So
yeah,
and it's delicious. A big part of British culture.
Yeah, that was the first place that I had a Bramble. It wasn't actually a drink that I was familiar with at all. And now, of course, it's like when you buy a car, then you see that same car everywhere. Now I see Brambles quite a bit here. Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't one that I was initially familiar with.
I've seen some places have the Creme De Mure as actually like part of the shaken cocktail, which I guess makes it a little bit easier to serve, but I think makes it categorically worse. But you know, I suppose each to their own. It's still nice either way, really. But I would say keeping it as the float, it keeps to its true nature. You know, it's maybe not again the most popular, but it's known well. And I see a lot of variations on it here. That's something I see a lot is nice cocktail bars love doing Bramble variations.
That makes sense.
Which
it seems like it's a very
it's an easy enough
drink.
one to twist. Yeah,
I think between like having it shaken and having the float kind of depends on like, are you drinking it with the straw or not? Because anytime that if you're not drinking with a straw, of course you're gonna have a better outcome if you have the float. But I think that a lot of people are already like, okay, I'm gonna mix her up. Like, just set it down and they're just going to town. Like,
especially with these places that really like to, that are trying to do twists or like adapt it or whatever. I've seen a good few places take a similar approach that you said with the Clover Club, where they'll put the blackberries in the shaker. Blackberries are like a very seasonal British fruit, and really kind of shine during the summer months here. So using proper fresh blackberries in the shaker is going to make a fantastic cocktail. So I could understand why you would want to use it like that as opposed to Creme De Mure, maybe using fresh blackberries. But if you're using Creme De Mure, I think float it. But it's just such a nice flavor profile that like I think no matter what kind of cocktail you like, you can enjoy it. If that makes sense. Like, if you like a sweeter cocktail, there's elements of this you'll like. If you like a bolder cocktail, elements of this you'll like. Maybe not so much bitter. There's not really much bitterness to this, but, you know, that if you like a sour cocktail, this is it. Like, it's got such a good balance of all of those things that I think it's...
That's a crowd pleaser for sure.
It's easy to enjoy, I would say, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I go with it, but... But yeah, that'd be mine for this. So we've got the Clover Club and the Bramble, two very fruity gin cocktails. Perhaps well, no, I guess with the big resurgence or surge of flavored gins, maybe it's kind of always been a thing that people know how well these fruity flavors pair with gin. It's just that it used to be more purely in a cocktail sense, and now they've kind of just skipped a step and put it straight into the gin, right? Gin does really well with fresh summery fruits. So hopefully in this next section, when we spin the wheel, we can get something nice and fresh and summery.
Yes.
But we'll see. Should we get the wheel spin on?
All right. Let's get her spinning.
Let me see if this is working. Hold on.
Oh.
Is it working now? There we go. Beautiful.
All
okay,
right.
we've got the wheel. Let's give it a spin. So we're on modifiers here. Oh, give us something nice with gin, please. I'd very much like something nice. Okay, so. It's landed on lime juice, right?
Oh, okay.
Which
super
feels almost a little too
like
easy.
Like cheating.
Yeah. Now, we can definitely make something good with lime juice here. And also, this may help us with the third spin, but I think for the sake of how we've been approaching this with a real creative edge. I think we should respin.
I think we should respin too.
I think we should try and get something a bit
86
more
lime.
interesting.
Let's go to something else.
Yeah, let's give it. So we're actually all out of lime juice on the bar.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like?
First time
your,
that's happened
gin
at a bar,
cocktail?
but
Perhaps some orange bitters.
yeah, let's go with that. Orange
All right.
bitters. I'm here for that.
Orange bitters. We can make that work. Yeah. Let's give it a go. All right. So orange bitters. So specifically orange bitters here.
Sure.
What are your initial thoughts on this?
My initial thought is a play on a mule. So you've got your ginger beer, and then you've got your gin, and then I like Angostura bitters in mine. But I think that putting the orange bitters, the orange, the ginger, and the gin, I think would all kind of play very interestingly together.
That makes
sense. What are your thoughts?
My first thought was to, like, if we're really trying to emphasize them a little bit, put quite a lot of focus into the orange side of it.
Sure.
Quite a popular flavored gin here is Tanqueray Sevilla, which is orange gin.
Okay.
Right. I think mixing that with the orange bitters and perhaps going, I can't really think of a particular classic I'd compare it to, but really kind of focusing on the orange flavors of it.
Sure.
And having it be something really quite citrusy, but not in your standard way. I think could be really good. I don't know how much of the orange bitters you'd necessarily use, but perhaps if you were to use some kind of sweetener to balance with that, you have it relatively. I'm trying to think that they have Tanqueray Sevilla. I think still holds a pretty high ABV. There are obviously other orange gins available. 41.3%. Tanqueray.
Yes,
It's technically Flor de Sevilla, but
I don't know if we have that one here in the States.
Oh, interesting. It's
we might.
It's not blood orange like a lot of others are. As far as I'm aware, it's just orange. It's fruitful, bold, and bittersweet, perfectly balanced with Tanqueray's legendary botanicals, is what the Tanqueray website says about it. So yeah, it's very orange citrusy, basically. That's kind of the idea behind it. It's bright, it's fruity, it's summery, you know? So perhaps going down some kind of route with that. I'm struggling to think of exactly what comes next, because I want to keep that orange flavour as its core.
Sure. You want to do something that counterbalances the orange to kind of.
Yeah, but I want something that sits nicely with an orange flavour, but without taking away, like without fighting it too much. I want the orange to still be the core flavour of it. We've already got orange bitters and orange gin. We don't necessarily need to add more orange. I guess
what
we
about
could,
like,
but like
something maybe like mango or something like that has like still like a really like not citrusy, but like really like bright and fresh flavor, but also is a little bit more subdued and frequently pairs with orange.
Yeah, that's true. Orange does pair a lot with like mango and those kind of fresh stuff. Maybe like passion fruit. Similarly, like
passion fruit would be another good one.
Any of those kind of really summery ones that aren't like a dark berry, because I think that'll be too much. You want to keep it kind of light.
I agree.
I think that if we're thinking about the composition of the drink, these are flavors we can put in, but what are we wanting this kind of output to come to? I think this compared to the last two episodes, particularly the last two, as soon as we had ingredients, I feel like we saw kind of a pathway and we saw the end result.
Yeah.
This one, we're kind of throwing stuff at the wall a little bit more, which I think is still a super fun way of doing it. I'm trying to think about the end result of the drink, and is it going to be something we essentially are just making a daisy out of, right? Like if we're following the daisy kind of recipe,
that is true.
Use this orange gin. You could even use something like a Cointreau or a triple sec. It's orange in itself already, but still a different kind of profile, right?
Sure.
With the orange bitters being specifically, yeah, I don't know if that'd be too much, perhaps, but I guess that the orange that comes from like triple sec is, especially if you go with a brand that focuses more on like the peels and stuff, it's going to be a bit more kind of zesty.
Sure.
Whereas the other's a bit more fresh, and the orange bitters is obviously bitter, right? You're kind of bringing 3 different kinds of orange flavor to it. And I think there's certainly something to be.
I feel
Oh,
a little bit at a disadvantage because I'm not familiar with this. Like I can taste the other flavors we're talking about. I can't
right.
necessarily
But
taste the gin.
is Tanqueray Sevilla really not a? Do you have orange gins in the US? Is that really like a thing?
I mean, I have never looked for one. We might, but I don't
So
like.
so
I can't.
Beefeater
I
has a
couldn't tell
blood
you a
orange, but
brand.
blood orange is very different.
Yeah, I'm not a big blood orange fan.
No, and it's already very bitter. We don't want to add orange bitters to it. I wouldn't say.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It is quite citrusy. It's very bright. It gives
Okay.
that kind of, when you have really fresh orange juice,
Hmm.
and it has that really kind of, honestly, actually, ignore that entirely. Just an orange. When you bite into a really
Yeah.
fresh orange, and it's super juicy, and it gives that really nice, light, refreshing tang to it. That's
Hmm.
kind of the flavors that Tanqueray Sevilla comes with. So it's got the gin and it's got
Okay.
the botanicals, but the orange really does take like a front seat to it, where
Okay.
it's got a really lovely shine to it. Is how I'd describe it. Um, I'm trying to really well balance the way that you talk about alcohols, but also the way that my very sort of neurodivergent brain processes flavors into words, because I know that yours
No, that makes
reacts
sense.
to that well. And shine is the best word I can think of for it. Um,
Shine. Okay.
it's a very bright flavor,
Okay. I think
and
biting into the orange gives me a little bit of an idea of that. I think that
there
okay.
was
So very very bright and like okay. I think not sugary, but just excellent. Okay.
there was a spirit that we worked with in EBS, and I was trying to think of the name of it, and I've got it now. Mandarin Napoleon. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh,
A
very vaguely, I do
Mandarin,
remember that. Yes.
a French Mandarin liqueur made from
Yes.
brandy. Right.
Yes, I do remember
This
that
was
now.
very
Yes.
tart. I remember. Um,
Yes.
and
It was in the blind tasting that we did. Yes.
mhm. um, and I'll tell you what, the kind of it's kind of like orange adjacent, right? That's kind of what mandarins already are. They're like, you know,
Yes.
oranges, funky little brothers who came live in another country, like a Mandarin Napoleon is a really, really funky, complex liqueur.
Hmm.
What if we went with that kind of daisy build, but instead of going with like a Cointreau or a triple sec, which is maybe a little bit too similar, we went with like a
Yeah.
Mandarin Napoleon,
Oh.
some kind of mix of those two with the orange bitters. You're getting a lot of different kind of like, it's almost giving, like I'm picturing being like out in like the like a European botanical garden, and you've got like
Okay.
the ladies in the lovely floral dresses, and they're bringing like a bowl of fruits over, and there's like really fresh stuff in that, and you've got a lovely drink in hand, and this is where you get to with it, like
Sounds wonderful. Yes.
yeah, it's like a really. I, I'm not getting a specific drink in mind like I did with the others. I'm getting a vibe, and
No, it's
and I
and
think
sometimes
that
that's
if
what
you
you
just
get.
if we just had 3 things that were exactly the same kind of orange flavor, it's just going to taste like orange, and it's pointless. It's why I'm trying to avoid putting orange juice in this, right?
No, of
But
course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mandarin Napoleon, Tanqueray Sevilla, and orange bitters are 3 different kinds of orange
They
adjacent
really are.
flavors
Yes.
that I think they
Yeah.
bring a really nice kind of bright balance to that. And then really all you have to do is balance out the cocktail.
Sure.
Um, Maybe you
So
could
how
go
would you
like you said.
propose balancing it out?
Well, I'm looking at it and thinking either this needs to be something that's served long with some kind of sparkling mixer, or it's something that you build out that kind of you add some kind of fresh juice to it, to give it its body, and it's more of a coupe drink, right? We do a lot of
Sure.
coupe builds here already. I know we do.
Hmm.
That's a go-to for us. But also, if I'm thinking about a refreshing drink like this, actually, I'm thinking about building it out more, almost spritzy. You know,
Yeah, I like that.
a
I
long
like that
mixed drink,
idea.
right? You have kind of the base of the Mandarin, the Tanqueray Sevilla, which lends itself well to spritzy drinks. Anyways, it's a gin, and the orange bitters. maybe a little bit of extra sweetener.
What if you made it like with you use some like cava or prosecco and then added a little bit of like soda water on top of that?
True.
Because I bet like the dryness of maybe even like a cava would play well with all of the other orangey elements. I think
That's true.
perhaps.
That's true. I'm worried about it being a little. The dry and the bitter will sit nicely, but there's not much sweetness coming from anything in this. Even the spirits, I don't think are bringing very much sweetness in themselves. And I think for this to be a properly refreshing drink, well, I guess maybe that's me personally. Like a lot of people, when they want a refreshing drink, go to something like an Aperol Spritz, which I think is disgusting.
Exactly.
That has no
That's what I
sweetness
was
in
kind
it,
of thinking.
right?
Oh no, I think it's. I also am not an Aperol Spritz fan. I think they're all lying.
Yeah,
It's a conspiracy. No one enjoys
I don't
it.
see what's refreshing about it, about
No.
this drink that makes my mouth want to convulse within itself. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
And I'll have people
building
drink
this out
like
in
3 or
that
4
kind
of them.
of,
I'm like, how?
yeah, it's building this out in a similar kind of way to that. I think could be really good. Perhaps I think you might be right with some prosecco, but then instead of going with a soda or a tonic to top it, maybe that's where you add that dash of sweetness. You go with maybe like a lemonade, right? Like
Yeah.
or like
Yes.
kind of lemonade, or perhaps like
Or Sprite. Yeah.
even like a cloudy lemonade, right? Like to really kind of bring it
What's a cloudy lemonade?
where there's a lot more of that lemon kind of left in it, as opposed to something really filtered and clear,
okay.
you know.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Something like kind of somewhere in between a classic American lemonade and Sprite,
Okay.
you know, or something of that ilk, you know, where it's kind of like a
Like Collins, sort of, but
yeah, exactly, yeah. It's kind of like instead of a Tom Collins, it's like a European version of it. You know, you've got the very Spanish Tanqueray Sevilla. You've got the very French Mandarin Napoleon. It's a real kind of, you know, Western European mixture of flavors, taking the Tom Collins to something much more
popping
exotic,
all over
right?
the EU. Yeah.
Yeah. The orange bitters maybe get a little bit lost in it, but I suppose if you've got a lot of sweetness in it, the bitters will balance that out, right?
Well,
That's
and
mainly
if
why
you're
I'm
putting
thinking
it on
about
top, you're gonna get that nose.
That's mainly why I'm
The
thinking
nose of
about the sweetness, right? Is because of the bitters being a big component of this. Like, although actually maybe using, okay, I know we dunked on the Aperol Spritz not that long ago, but clearly that kind of almost Amaro like bitterness in these refreshing drinks is something that appeals to a lot of people.
It does, yeah.
Maybe that's just what we're
I
using
don't
the
think
bitters
necessarily
for,
think
to
that
kind of
we need to
almost emulate that without ruining the freshness of the other ingredients we've got in this.
Yep.
Right? So if you were to go with, I don't know, 30ml Tanqueray Sevilla, 30ml Mandarin Napoleon, 4 dashes orange bitters, maybe more if you want to really kind of, if you want to really build it into that Amaro
It's a
style.
good start.
Instead of going dashes, you start to go to like 10ml, right?
Yeah.
Then Prosecco, lemonade, right? Or
Yeah.
or I guess soda to taste, right? I would go lemonade for that sweetener. I think the sweetness would be important in this, but
I think it kind of depends on preference, but yeah, either way, I think it would be pretty nice.
that's what I'd say, and I think it's kind of like a long drink, and then it is basically like it's a spritz, right? It's an orangey spritz.
Yeah.
It's a you know,
Orangerol Spritz.
yeah. It's a big French and Spanish mix. What do the French and Spanish have in common, or what do they have something within their history? French, Spanish. Is this where I realize I don't know anything and there's something really obvious? Have they had like a big war?
Do the French and the Spanish have a big war? I'll let you figure that one out.
They both share a long border across the Pyrenees. A Pyrenees Spritz. There you go.
Perfect. Yeah.
Easy, and then I don't have to go into any wars. There is a Franco-Spanish war, but I'm not going to click on that link. All right, the Pyrenees Spritz. We'll go with that. So
that sounds great.
Cocktail number 1, with the addition of the orange bitters, we've got the Pyrenees Spritz. I'm trying to type in the name so I don't forget it. We're
For the
going with.
American listeners, I would say that as a Pyrenees, but
It
we're all in
probably
this
is that, and I'm
together.
probably just saying it wrong, but that's
Oh
fine.
no, I don't know.
You know, with 30 ml Tanqueray Flor de Sevilla, 30 ml Mandarin Napoleon, maybe like 50 ml Prosecco, you'd say.
Yeah,
Maybe more.
definitely.
Maybe more like
Maybe more, maybe
60,
less.
60
Yeah,
you know. I guess you want
sure.
probably 60 so you can balance out, right? So we've got 60 ml of the
Yeah,
spirit in there. 4 dashes of orange bitters.
yeah.
And then
We just
top
stirring it.
with cloudy
Oh yeah,
lemonade. Garnish with the orange slice.
I'm into it.
You know what? That sounds quite lovely. That's
It
a
does.
spritz I could really go to. I
Well
like
done.
the idea of that. So, it took us a little longer to get there than maybe some of the others have, but
Hey, that's okay. But
we got
gin
a
is
good result
worth
out of it.
taking your time for.
Yeah, gin requires more attention for those things, I
It
think.
it
Um,
it does.
I know, and also we could have had a much easier one because we did originally roll lime juice. So
Yeah, I know. We could have done gimlets. Yeah,
yeah, all right. Should we bring back the wheel? Should we get our third
let's
ingredient
do
and
it.
really get weird with it?
Let's see. Let's get weird.
Let's get the wheel back up. Boom! Look at that. Right, I say look at that like you can see it. All
I
right,
can't see it.
spin the wheel of everything. So we have to keep the orange bitters. We keep the gin of
Yep.
any kind, and
Okay. Drum
pineapple
roll,
juice.
please.
It
Pineapple.
very nearly
Okay,
landed
that's
on
not so
orange
bad.
juice, and I was about to make the
Okay.
same thing but with orange juice. But
Yeah.
pineapple
Okay.
juice. Okay. So
Gin and juice goes so well together, right?
yeah, I'm.
There's a whole song about it.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so pineapple juice then. Perhaps we take a step back and go back towards the beginning
We
of
have
the
to go
orange
back to a
bitters
normal
discussion.
gin.
But
Yeah.
well, not necessarily.
Not
We
necessarily?
can,
Okay.
but
We can.
when we first
Okay.
started talking about the orange gin and orange bitters, and we
Uh-huh.
were unsure as to where to go with it, I said
Sure.
my ideas were going with either going the route we did, where it's kind of like a longer drink with spritz it, or as we often do, going into a coupe style drink with some juice, and we're talking about maybe mango juice and stuff like that. If
Mhm.
we're forced to use pineapple juice, maybe pineapple is what we go with here. And as opposed to the Mandarin Napoleon route, we've still got the orange bitters, we've still got the gin. Maybe we use the pineapple juice and then have something secondary, a sweetener or a liqueur like a daisy build, to pair well, to bridge that gap between whatever gin we use, even if we stick with an orange gin and the pineapple juice. Because no matter what, we've got orange bitters in there already, right?
Right.
Maybe this is where we go with more of a blood orange gin to kind of add some of that bitterness, and we go with something sweet next to it. I never want to go
Yeah.
to blood orange gin either,
Ugh,
but
I just don't. I don't want blood orange anything.
yeah.
Uh,
If we, I really do think we could stick with the orange gin here. I think, and
yeah,
we
because
just make
orange
it
and
like
pineapple go really well together
we
too.
make it like a real like tropical build, right?
Sure.
So we
Or what
have
about
the.
tropical? You could have like maybe some grenadine would be the sweetener or something like
That's true.
and
That's true.
that'll add some color to it too.
There's some really like, there's some tropical kind of tiki drinks that have like orange juice and pineapple juice in them, right?
Of course, yeah, that's
I'm thinking
pretty
if we were to
common
kind of
mix blend.
steal some of the components from those and then kind of replicate into this. What was the? I'm trying to think now. There was a couple of the classic tiki drinks we did down at EBS, and also I've looked into a lot since that have like had those kind of combinations of juices in them.
Sure.
Maybe even like a.
Well, the key is using kind of a small amount of each of the juices so that you're not just like one drinking juice,
Right, yeah.
and that you're that so that the flavors can melt a little bit.
Yeah, of course. What I'm thinking more so is what is a good bridging flavor between orange and
Pineapple.
orange and pineapple, yeah, where like a mango, even like a passion fruit, like those kind of maybe you
Yep.
go with like a
Any
passion
of
fruit
those would
liqueur,
definitely
right? A
round it
daisy
out.
build
Yeah,
with a
you
passion
could do
fruit
that.
liqueur.
Sure.
Because the pineapple juice it doesn't have the most like prominent specific flavor profile to it, but
I agree with that.
I also think that it actually isn't one that sits too well directly with really botanical flavors. So you have to be careful how you mix those, I think. Just because
Yeah, I think that there's something
but botanicals
delicate.
have a really kind
Yeah.
of piney, earthy, floral flavor mostly, and that is not when I think about flavors that work with pineapple juice. That's not where my head goes ever.
Well,
Um,
perhaps mixing pineapple juice not with another juice, but maybe a puree. So that maybe like with mango puree, because then that would kind of bring, I think the purees are less, I think that personally are less sweet than like the juice is. So you're
that's
still
true.
getting those flavors. It's taking a little bit of like the really sugary sweet off of the pineapple. And then you're able to like, because, mango and gin, I think go very well together as
Oh
well.
yeah, for sure.
Kind of, the mango would subdue the pineapple so that you'd be able to let the gin shine through. And maybe a
Yeah,
little bit of, if we got lime juice back in, maybe a little spritz of lime to be able to brighten it up as well.
that's true. That's true. You could also to kind of balance a little bit with what I was saying about the botanicals being a little bit too much. We're
Mm-hmm.
using gin as an overall category here, and obviously there are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of specific categorizations within it. There is a categorization of gin called Old Tom gin, which is
Okay.
a little bit of an older recipe for it, which basically sits sort of somewhere in between gin as we know it now and Geneva in its classic, because Geneva generally is a lot sweeter than gin, right? And
Okay.
Old Tom gin has sort of a sweeter kind of body to it, and I think possibly that would sit a little bit better with pineapple juice because it wouldn't have
Yeah, definitely.
um, it
Wouldn't
wouldn't
be so
have such
brash
like
and
a
harsh.
it's typically sweeter than London Dry but drier than the Dutch Geneva. So I
Hmm.
think would sit really nice. I think in terms of like modern day brands, I think Heyman's do Heyman's do an Old Tom gin. Um, that it's just not, it's got a lot less of those abrasive qualities that we were talking about earlier. And
Mm-hmm.
it's got a real kind of smoothness, but it's a little bit sweeter. Therefore, sitting with that pineapple juice, it's not going to fight with it as much, right? Um, Pineapple juice is, I've seen it primarily used two ways in most cocktails that it's prominent in. One of them is as a mixture of juices, like in tiki drinks, and one of
Yes.
them generally is in things like a French martini or a porn star martini, where you use around 50 mil of it to basically give it body and head, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
And my instinct when I think about gin in these drinks is to go with more of like a head based thing, like a
Yeah, because
porn
you
star
can get that
martini kind
hard
of build.
shake on it and get that nice foam from the
Exactly. So if
pineapple.
you were to have that kind of Old Tom and the orange bitters and stuff like that, you use those bitters to balance out with something pretty sweet. Whatever sweetener you use, you can have something in there. So maybe, I know you said you had the idea of the mango puree because it isn't as sweet, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
if you look at it the other way around and go more with like a mango syrup,
Yeah.
and you've
No,
got the
that.
gin and the mango syrup, or I guess even it's edging really close to it, but if you just went with like a passion fruit liqueur, you're kind of
Yeah.
almost making
No.
a porn star anyways, right? But with gin
Yes.
and orange
Gin porn
bitters,
star.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like maybe as opposed to a porn star, it's more of like you know a page three girl, but it's or like
A British porn star. There we go.
a boudoir, yeah, yeah,
A page
yeah.
three. Oh my god. Okay.
It's um or if you want to kind of avoid the horrifically low quality cocktail scene that we have in a lot of bars here, then you build it out with like your mango flavors and stuff instead and go really kind of fruity with it. Um,
Yeah.
I think maybe that's more fun. I think if we're building out the page three girl build, you just get a porn star. It's better. Like
Yeah. Definitely.
it's gonna be less irritating to make, right? And
Yeah.
not different enough where it's worth choosing. Whereas you start going with like your mangoes and stuff like that, or those kind of flavors, I think you can build something really nice out of it.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
do like the idea of
I think
mango.
that would be really nice.
I
Yeah.
think mango
Well,
already
I
goes
mean,
really well with the gin.
it does.
I think it goes really well with the pineapple. I'm a little stuck between the Old Tom root because it's a bit sweeter and just a orange gin. I think you can
I
really
kind of
make
like
like
that
a
old Tom. I think that idea kind of intrigues me.
Okay. So Old Tom gin. Maybe you don't even need to daisy it, right? You just Old Tom gin, mango syrup, pineapple juice, orange bitters.
Yeah.
Give it a good hard shake. Gets a nice foam on it. Um,
Double strain into a coupe.
mhm. Maybe you could even to sort of, I guess,
You could
balance it
even
in a
just single
slightly
strain
nicer
it to get
way.
some of those ice pieces in it.
Well, I was just gonna say to keep it a little bit sort of more on the fruity side of things. Instead of shaking the orange bitters into it, you use them as part of the garnish. So you kind of drop them
I
into
like
that
that.
head, right? If you have like a
Yes.
really solid
Yep.
head, you drop them
Yep.
into that, make some little love hearts out of them or whatever. Um, Makes a nice easy garnish on
Or
it. Looks
heavy
nice
on
on
the
top.
or whatever.
Yeah, like the love hearts or swirl it around, or something that
Of
looks pretty
course.
on the top. But if you use the orange bitters
Yes.
as that, I just think it probably sits quite nicely in that. And then,
Yeah, because then you're getting that orange right on the nose as
mhm,
you're picking up the drink. I like that idea
yeah,
instead of it
exactly.
just getting kind of lost in the
Yeah,
pineapple field.
and then for it to not be too sweet, you probably could add you could daisy build it, so you add a liqueur alongside the gin to just kind of boost it a little bit further. Maybe it's just a triple sec. Triple sec could sit
Maybe.
nicely in it, I think. Um,
Yeah, and that goes with pineapple.
yeah, you do
All that
like
balances.
your sort of 35 to 15 or 40 to 20 gin triple sec. You do 10 15 mango syrup, 50 ml pineapple juice, hard shake, fine strain, let it set, and then a little
Do
orange
your
bitters
bitter
on
art.
top.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
could
I
be.
like that. I think that's a great idea.
It's a nice like sort of fruity cocktail while everything in it is quite fresh. Hell, you really want to get like we have been with it. Don't even use mango syrup. Shake mangoes in it. Chop up
Yeah.
some mango chunks. Shake them
Hang
in.
on, I gotta go chop up a mango.
Yeah, like
Yeah, no, you can.
it's a seasonal menu, sure, but
Yeah, sure,
you know,
definitely. Yeah.
give it some really cool flavor, right? Maybe like
Oh yeah, I'm into
maybe you
that.
get some put a few mango chunks in the bottom of the shaker with like a little bit of sugar and just muddle it first, and
Yeah.
then
No, I think that the muddling would definitely help just because of just usually mango is a
mhm.
little bit not as fragile as perhaps a berry would be. So
Yeah,
you might
yeah.
have to
Like
do a little bit of
if I'm making a quick
mechanic
drink for someone at the bar, I'm
mechanization to
never
it.
choosing this, but in our
No.
previous creative recipes, we've looked at this in a really kind of molecular mixology kind of
Yeah.
basis. We've made acid adjusted apple juices on the fly. Like we're going off a
Hmm.
fantasy bar here. Like this
Of course.
is this is something we can afford to do and already have the stuff to do.
Yeah.
So I think like
Got a
a
wonderful
muddled
bar back. Yeah.
yeah, like 3 or 4 mango chunks and just a bar spoon of white sugar, muddle it in the
Yeah.
bottom,
I like that idea a lot.
then
I think
you
that's
know.
would
And
be
honestly, if you're gonna do
nicer than the
that,
syrup.
that's bringing such a fantastic complex flavor, and it's like it's bringing a much more fresh flavor. Maybe you
Hmm.
don't even need the triple sec. Maybe you just do the gin then. Keep it a little bit more
Yeah, I think
simple.
that if we were going to go ahead and muddle the mango, we probably want to get rid of the triple sec just to pull out all the other
Hmm.
keep it as limited flavors as possible, just to let all those things shine through.
Yeah. Okay. So say I don't know 4 mango chunks in the bottom, a bar spoon of white sugar, muddle, 60 ml gin, 60 ml pineapple juice, hard shake,
Yeah,
fine strain, orange bitters as part of the garnish. Maybe if you want to go a little bit extra
yeah.
funky, you do that and then clip some on the side. Maybe like a little, you know,
Orange peel or
yeah, or like a mango
pineapple
skin or
rind
like
or
yeah,
pineapple. Oh, maybe like a pineapple leaf.
a pineapple leaf. Pineapple leaf would look nice. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, pineapple leaf sort of like clipped onto the side when there's little wooden
yeah.
pegs, with
Yes.
a few of the orange bitters in the middle. That sounds
That
really
sounds
nice,
nice.
actually.
It
It
does.
sounds
It
like a little
does.
bit of an irritation to make, sure, but it sounds really good.
Well, but the best drinks
and
are.
and I'm mango isn't a go-to flavor to me, but I have seen
Me
quite
neither.
often the notion that if you don't like mango a lot, it's because you've not had good mangoes. And I
Hmm.
think that proper good fresh mangoes would really elevate this drink past anything we could do with a syrup or a puree.
Yeah, definitely. Yep,
Um,
I agree.
and and then we've got the orange bitters, we've got the pineapple juice, and we've got the gin. So we've got all 3 of our ingredients. A very
Yeah,
different drink to the first one. Again, we
very different.
love having these big variations, but
Yeah.
we're building
Well, what are we
a
calling it?
real oh oh
Most important part.
oh we oh Okay, what have we got? We've got mango, we've got Old Tom gin, we've got pineapple. Um, um,
We've got the orange
I'm trying to think of
bitters.
some play on words with the Old Tom,
Oh, me too.
right? Like a. Oh, surely we
It's
can
the
think of
hardest part.
something creative for this. Hold on. We put so much work into the cocktail, we can't just give it to them now, right? Um, it is a martini build, so maybe it should have martini there somewhere. Like it's a. If you were to describe it or compare it, you're comparing it to martinis, right? Like
Yeah,
martinis also like porn stars and stuff.
of course. Yeah.
Um, but old martini just sounds bad. Um, Tommy's martini
Old Tom's
implies
pineapple teeny. Yeah.
that sounds like how they'd advertise it in the 1920s in an
Yeah,
old like
100%.
come down to the bar and get your Old Tom's pineapple martini. Like it's not really.
100%.
uh,
Yeah.
um, uh, um, and there's a mango as well. It's like a tropical, like a
Tropical Tom.
tropical Tom. Tropical Tom. I like that. It's a
I like alliteration. I can't help it.
yeah, tropical Tom. This is a hard one to go with like a really funky name
It,
for. So I think
it is.
tropical Tom sits nicely in it.
Leave it. Drop a comment if you have a better
And
name for this.
yeah, please give us better names for these. And also, as usual, drop a comment and let us know which of the recipes we've put together today you would like to try the most, whether it's our creative ones or one of the
Yes.
classics. I think also something good with tropical Tom, as much as the name itself doesn't come with like a kind of energy like some of the others do. What it does do, which is really good to have on a menu, is it comes with questions
Oh
that have
yeah,
nice answers,
definitely.
right? Because if you're
Yes.
going to have questions from a menu, you want them to have interesting answers. When they go, why Tom?
Yes.
Why is it called Tropical Tom? What's Tom about this? And you go,
Well, let
well,
me
it
tell
uses
you.
Old Tom Gin, which is this middle ground between. So, yeah, I think I like Tropical Tom. Okay, so we've got the, what was it, the Pyrenees Spritz and the Tropical Tom added to
Wow.
our hypothetical menu, if you will,
Yeah.
onto the hypothetical bar. We need to think of a name for our hypothetical bar, I think.
We do. Yeah.
The for the on the fly's hypothetical bar name pending. We'll come up with this eventually. We'll
Yeah.
properly name the
It's a
section and
process.
everything. But yeah, that's cool. That's two recipes, two classics, and a good amount of talk on the history of gin. I think that's probably where we leave it for this week. Then.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's.
Lovely stuff.
I think we covered it.
Yeah, got some really refreshing drinks on there to fit the summery vibes we're coming into now. Maybe we'll have to try some of these at some point. Maybe this is thinking out loud, so this isn't confirmed if you're listening. But maybe at some point in the future we do sort of a weird little special episode where we make some of these drinks.
Yeah, I think that's a
You
great
know,
idea.
we pick out a few
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah.
That'd be. I think it'd be cool.
No, I'm
Wh-
into it.
when we have more money. When we have more money and can afford to
Yes.
buy the
Yeah.
ingredients for these drinks, we test them out.
Yes.
But yeah, that is going to be it for this week, though. Thank you guys
Cool.
for listening or watching wherever you did. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and leave a like on the video. Make sure you rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Leave a comment both on Spotify and YouTube with any sort of feedback or what you think of the drinks or anything you'd change. Right? I know if we have listeners, we're going to have bartender listeners. So let us know what funky ideas you would have come up for these and what your favorite gin is. I'm
Thanks, y'all.
always happy for a nice discussion. I'll respond to any comments that I can. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.